I'd like to thank the organisers for the opportunity to present these data on behalf of the DORIS study team, and I have no conflicts of interest. So rifampicin remains a cornerstone of TB treatment. However, mounting evidence suggests that the recommended dose of 10 mg per kg is suboptimal and higher doses would be more efficacious. Increasing bacterial elimination rates have been observed with doses up to 35 mg per kg in early bactericidal activity studies. And a phase 2 study demonstrated accelerated culture conversion with rifampicin of 35 mg per kg. And the high-RIF study reported clear dose and exposure response relationships up to 20 mg per kg. And the more than dose proportional increase in rifampicin PK has not translated to increased dose-related toxicities. So people living with HIV are approximately 14 times more likely to develop TB. And they also have poorer treatment outcomes and higher mortality when on treatments compared to those without HIV. So the WHO recommends initiation of antiretroviral therapy as soon as possible within 2 weeks of starting TB treatment. And rifampicin is a well-documented potent inducer of metabolic pathways and transporters and is associated with high risk of drug-drug interactions. So dolutegravir-based therapy is recommended for those diagnosed with TB and HIV co-infection needing to initiate antiretrovirals. And marked reductions in once and twice daily dolutegravir with rifampicin have been observed in healthy volunteers, and increasing the dose to 50 mg twice daily in the presence of rifampicin has proven to be effective and well tolerated. But the impact of incremental doses of rifampicin on UGT1A1, CYP3A4 and PGP induction have not been explored within the same study. So the DORIS study was open-label, fixed-sequence, 4-phase study, and recruitment was between November 2021 and October 2023 at 2 sites, one in South Africa and the other in Uganda. And they enrolled TB monoinfected adults living without HIV coming to the end of the continuation phase of anti-TB treatment containing rifampicin and isoniazid. And the main primary PK objective was to evaluate the impact of incremental rifampicin administration at low dose, medium dose, and high dose on UGT1A1 induction by assessment of the changes in steady-state dolutegravir, and also to evaluate the CYP3A4 and PGP induction by assessment of changes in single-dose Midazolam and Digoxin, and additionally to evaluate the changes in rifampicin PK with incremental dosing. So dolutegravir was administered for a week, twice daily, prior to the increase of rifampicin to 20 mg per kg and then to 35 mg per kg. And single doses of Midazolam and Digoxin were given coinciding with the final dose of dolutegravir. And then 4 weeks after TB treatment was complete, once daily dolutegravir was given for a week, and then along with the Midazolam and Digoxin single dose. So intensive PK sampling was performed at the time points indicated here on days 14, 28, 42, and 5 weeks post TB treatment. And rifampicin was administered an hour before the probes under fasted conditions. So plasma was obtained and the samples were analysed by LCMS in Liverpool for dolutegravir and rifampicin and in Birmingham for Digoxin and Midazolam. And the lower limits of quantification are shown at the bottom of the slide. A non-compartmental analysis was performed to determine the PK parameters of AUC over 12 hours, Tmax and Cmax, and additionally for dolutegravir over 24 hours for the AUC, and C-tau, the concentration at the end of the dosing interval. So changes in the PK parameters were determined by linear mixed effects using log transform data and participants as a random effect. And changes were considered statistically significant if to obtain geometric mean ratios and 90% confidence intervals, and changes were considered statistically significant if the confidence interval did not cross 1. So the study enrolled a total of 36 individuals, and the demographics are stratified here by study site and also with the data combined. The majority of individuals were male, and the median age was 35 years with weight of around 60 kilograms. So this graph summarises the Dolutegravir concentrations over the nominal time post-dose on a linear scale. And it's geometric mean and 95% confidence intervals for day 14 in blue, day 28 in orange, day 42 in green, and post-TB treatment in yellow. And the EC90 and the protein-adjusted IC90 are shown by the dashed lines. And just depending on which study day, there was a maximum of 33 individuals with PK data. And this table summarises the key PK parameters stratified by study day. And for AUC over 24 hours, and that was determined by doubling the AUC over 12 hours. And there is a similar plot and table for single-dose intravenous Midazolam, and then for Digoxin. So these box plots present the AUCs of Dolutegravir at the top, and the Cmax and the C-tau on the bottom. And that's in combination with Rifampicin standard dose in blue, 20 mg per kg in orange, 35 mg per kg in green, and then 5 weeks post-TB treatment in yellow. The median is the solid line, and then the 25th and 75th percentiles of the box, and the whiskers extend to no more than and at least the 1.5 times the interquartile range. And also, just in the table below there, is the proportion of individuals above the EC90 and the protein-adjusted IC90 on each study day. So compared to 5 weeks post TB treatment, a statistically significant reduction in AUCs and Cmax of around 45, 25, and 30% respectively was observed in the presence of Rifampicin. However, C-tau was not significantly reduced. And twice-daily Dolutegravir was not reduced further beyond that observed with the standard dose of Rifampicin of 10 mg per kg. So moving on to Midazolam, with AUC at the top and Cmax at the bottom. And then this table shows the geometric means compared to 5 weeks post-TB treatment. And there was marked variability in the Midazolam PK parameters, and a statistically significant reduction in the Cmax and AUC in the presence of Rifampicin. However, it was not reduced incrementally with the higher dose of Rifampicin. However, we're unsure as to why there appears to be an increase at the 20 mg per kg dose of Rifampicin, but this still remains even when the outliers were removed. So moving on to Digoxin with the AUC at the top again and the Cmax at the bottom. So compared to 5 weeks post anti-TB treatment, there was a statistically significant increase in AUC between 8 and 22% with Rifampicin, and Cmax between 17 and 21% with the higher doses of Rifampicin. And small but a statistically significant increase in AUC with the higher doses of Rifampicin was observed compared to standard dosing. And this graph just represents the geometric mean and 95% confidence intervals of Rifampicin over time. And that's at the standard dose in blue, in the 20 mg per kg in orange, and 35 mg per kg in green. And this table just summarises the key PK parameters. And then, as previously reported, there was a more than dose proportional increase in the Rifampicin PK parameters with increase in dose. So just a little bit about the dual effects of Rifampicin on PGP. So Rifampicin is a renowned chronic inducer, but acute inhibitory effects have been reported with Digoxin and also other PGP substrates. And this depends on the timing of administration. So Rifampicin has been shown to be exhibit acute inhibitory effects that overcome the induction when Digoxin is administered simultaneously or an hour after the last dose of Rifampicin or following the first Rifampicin dose. And then separation of the dosing results in the reduced Digoxin concentrations. So just to conclude, twice daily Dolutegravir was reduced to a similar extent with incremental doses of Rifampicin, but there was little impact on C-tau, suggesting maximal induction of UGT1A1 with standard Rifampicin doses. So marked variability in Midazolam, but the exposures were not reduced further with the higher doses of Rifampicin compared to standard dose. And Digoxin was increased in the presence of Rifampicin, but to a similar extent with the higher doses. And this is potentially associated with net inhibitory effects of gut PGP efflux, masking the induction, and due to the concomitant dosing of the two drugs. And overall, twice-daily Dolutegravir appears to be sufficient, provides sufficient concentrations in the presence of the higher doses of Rifampicin, but investigations of virological response are warranted. And we are grateful to all the participants who took part in the DORIS study and all the research staff at the study sites. And I'd just like to acknowledge my co-authors and all the other DORIS collaborators and the funding for this study. Thank you.